Yeah, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Kurt, coach of the Adelaide Absols, bringing you UPA Season 3 draft analysis of the entire league. And today I'm joined by Silver.
Yo, what is good, guys? This is your boy Silver Spasher here, coach of the Floridian Typhlosions.
This is another tiers-based draft. So, again, like last season, except this season we had the unban of Mega Latios and Hooper Unbound. So Mega Latios is a Tier 1 Mega, while Hooper Unbound went into Tier 1. The only thing is that Hooper Unbound is not allowed to use Z moves. So if you do draft that, you can't use Z moves. There's not really much else that really changed, other than the fact that Speed Pass was changed again this season, so that it's only Agility Pass. You can't do anything else with Speed Passing, you can't use Speed Boost. So without further ado, I think we should get into the drafts, and we're going to start off with Elliot and the coach of the Surrey Snorlaxes. So this draft is absolutely busted, just straight up. Hydreigon Celebi with webs, and this is just a busted draft. So have you got anything to say about this shit?
Well, when I first look at this draft, the first thing that meets the eye is Mega Mawile. And Mega Mawile just punches holes in every single draft. To be honest, the only check to Mega Mawile in draft format is Arcanine, and not everybody has an Arcanine. And I would even consider Arcanine a reliable switching, because an Arcanine, like if you have Rocks up and Mawile sets up a Swords Dance, or if he wants to be that guy and run Stone Edge or Rock Slide, he can do that and catch you on the switching. So, to be honest, there's really no switchings to this draft. And when it comes to Mega Mawile, and then on top of this, he has a very solid Volt Turn core and Hydreigon, Celebi, Diggersby has U-Turn. I love that he has Spin with Webs and Hazard Stack, because when you Hazard Stack, you don't want to defog. Defog gets rid of both opposing hazards, so Spin is always really good. And most of the time, when you bring Hazard Stack, you don't really want to bring Removal, because you're more than likely going to pressure your opponent to remove for you if it really bothers them a lot, which it 9 times out of 10 would. Another thing that stands out to me is the passing in this team. He can Nasty Plot Pass, he can Swords Dance Pass, he can Calm Mind Pass, he can Baton Pass with Dry Pass for momentum, so Celebi can't get Pursuit Trap. So that's also really good. Hydreigon is a really good special wall. It's very versatile. It can go mix. It has Taunt. It has U-Turn. It has Scarf Set, Spec Set, Z. It's a Z user, if I recall, and his Terrakion is his Z user as well. So that's another physical wall breaker that you have to prep for.
Yeah, and with his draft, the fact that Arcanine is basically the only switching, and he has 1 immunity, 3 ways to scare it out, alongside webs, as well as Z moves and stuff. So really, he doesn't have any switch-ins to this draft. It's just super offensive. It's really scary. I'm not looking forward to having a prep for this one.
Exactly.
So next up we have Silver's draft and the Floridian Typhlosions. This is another one of those scary drafts.
Okay, so when we drafted, I was looking for a round 1 pick, Escadrille or Latios, and I was asleep, and it was a slow draft, so my man Elliot picked for me, and he went with Latios. I was like, I would have went Escadrille round 1, but usually Escadrille usually lasts in this league, because if I recall, Escadrille went undrafted season 2, so I wasn't as scared. And then by the time I woke up and it got to me, I had Escadrille round 2, so I was like, okay, good. I have my Dragon Steel core already. And looking into this draft, I really wanted to draft around Mega Pidgeot. And Mega Pidgeot usually struggles with rocks on the field, rock types in general. It struggles against electric type. It doesn't take ice type moves well either. And when I dropped it, I was like, all right, obviously I need removal. Escadrille spins, it 4 times resists rocks, it's immune to electric. And Mega Pidgeot deals with the fighting types that Escadrille hate. And then Latios also is a very good electric immunity, not immunity, is a really good electric resist. It resists water for Escadrille, it resists grass, and Mega Pidgeot resists grass and hits grass very hard with Hurricane or kills it. And with Sand, I obviously needed a setter, so I went Gigalith. Gigalith is really good. The Sand Stream boost from Sandstorm for rock types really pushed this thing really well in draft format. This Spit F is really good. It's eating up hits, and it's weak to fighting, steel, ground, and water. And if I said grass already, that's my bad, but grass is also a weakness. But again, most of these weaknesses, Latios and Mega Pidgeot deals with them. And then I have a Moongus to deal with the grass type as well. Another water type resist. It switches into fighting, which is also good. It puts things to sleep. It has fall play. It has clear small, so you can't set up on it. And this is really good for my team because this gives my team the opportunity to come in, have a free turn, set up, or just attack things and pressure things and just punches holes on this team. And I love this team because Sand, I've had Sand in the WWCL and I've won the whole league with it. I love Sand. It's done tremendous work for me and I look forward to the season. And I have a nice fairy type for my Dragon Fairy Steel Core, a nice cleric, especially defensive naturally, so I really don't have to invest too much. When it comes to Spit F, it has Wish, it can Wish Pass, it has Aromatherapy. Moonblast is always nice, and its move pool is pretty nice for what it does. And on top of that, it's also another fighting resist, which I also really wanted as well, because you can never have too many fighting resists when you have a draft like this. And Frostlass, I was sniped of Greninja, so I was like, you know what? The next best spike user for me that will fit well in this draft is Frostlass. Ice and Ghost is really good for this. The reason I say this is because it's a spike setter and it has taunt along with being a spin blocker, along with having Destiny Bomb, T-Wave, Will-O-Wisp, nice utility moves, and it's base 110 speed, really good for this team. So I'll almost always get at least one layer of spikes up, which I really found valuable. Even though it's not in the speed test Greninja, I found a way to improvise, picked up Frostlass, and then I also got a Alolan Eradicate because I needed a dark type. I hated looking at my team and felt like Psychic can just come and just click buttons. And it's always never good to be weak to Psychic plus coverage because things like Reuniclus, Slowbro, things like that can set up Calm Minds and win versus that. And this gives me a leeway of not getting swept by Psychic types like Mega Zam, Mega Blade, things like that. And then Rotom Watt, not Rotom Watch, Rotom Heat gave me a nice bulky Volt Turn core with Mega Pidgeot. And it also overall gives me a nice utility with Will-O-Wisp, T-Wave, Toxic, Screens. It has many different sets that I can run that can help my team set up and pivot into things that I may not otherwise want to switch into.
Yeah, this is the first two drafts here already looking extremely scary. A lot of the drafts this season are really scary, as you see. This one with Sand plus Mega Pidgeot just means really there's just no safe typing, especially having Alolan Eradicate as your way around Dark type, Psychic type, sorry. and you have ways around dark types with flaws, and you just hit basically every type with this draft, and it's honestly going to be a pain to prep for. So next up, we're going to have Nico and the Orlando Magikarps. This is an annoying one. Celesteela plus Gardevoir and Goodra as the Dragon Fairy Steel Core with Healing Wish beside Goodra and Celesteela, meaning that they can get their health back relatively safely. Having that Mega Venusaur along with Miltank as Thick Fat for Celesteela. He has Lightning Rod in Alolan Marowak. Silvally can be any type, so that meaning he can run the ground. He's got regular Sand Slash. Lantern is an electric immunity. He just covers all the weaknesses for Celesteela or Goodra or something to come in and just do a lot of work. Miltank is a really nice fat rocker, takes a lot of hits, has a relatively decent speed stat to get up these hazards, which is really nice. Sneasel, Pursuit Trapping the fat psychics, or something like that could potentially pose a threat. Alolan Marowak also able to go Rockhead to just wall break things with Sword Stance. He also has the potential to semi-run Trick Room with the Alolan Marowak plus the Goodra. And just a lot of hard hitters on this draft and a lot of fat. Especially with the parting shot from Silvally giving momentum that he could potentially need, and just being able to lower stats so that Celesteela or something can come in and potentially set up and sweep. So he really covered a lot of the bases on this draft really, really well.
Of course, yeah.
And the speed tiering is not that much of a big drop. His fastest mon being Sneasel, dropping then down to the Keldeo. So you really can't run Modest or Adamant against this draft unless you have over base 120 speed. This one's going to be relatively hard to break the fat alongside breaking, switching into the wall breakers. It's just going to be a challenging draft.
And to be honest, like, he had first pick overall and he picked Celesteela. That's pretty much the best steel type in draft format. It's very versatile. It can go autotomized, it can be defensive, like physically defensive, it can go mixed, it can go specially defensive. Like even the autotomized sets can go mixed, it can go specially offensive, physically offensive, and it's his Z-Mon. So it can be a very good setup sweeper, and it can just steamroll with Beast Boost. Mega Venusaur covers this very well, resisting electric, fire doing minimum to it, and what makes this really good is that Celesteela resists every single one of Mega Venusaur's weakness, which is also really good. Paired with this, along with the Keldeo, which also resists the weaknesses that Celesteela usually hates, minus electric, but Mega Venusaur covers that very well. Even though this stacks up the psychic weakness, he also has a Pursuit Trapper that deals with the psychic types that Mega Venusaur hates and that Keldeo hates, and it also deals with the ghost type that may wall Keldeo, such as like Jellicent, things like that. And Goodra is a very good special sponge that can also go physical, special, mixed. It can be a Soap Vest, Leftovers, Curse Set. Goodra is just a very versatile mon that can sponge hits and be a good, bulky, offensive mon that shouldn't be slept on and taken lightly. And he has a very solid momentum grabbing team. He has slow Volt turn to bring in his mon safely. He has a very solid, bulky Rocker, and Miltank also having the ability to be a cleric with Heal Bell, and he has Parting Shot to help bring in his mons, taking minimum damage, along with being his defogger, and also being any type of his choice, depending on the matchup. He also has Spin, which is also really good. He has Healing Wish, Calm Mind setup, between Keldeo and Gardevoir. He has Swords Dance, Savali, Swords Dance, Sneasel, Swords Dance alone, right? Autotomize, Salsilla, and if you want to be that person, you can be even bring Work Up or Growth Mega Venusaur if you decide to bring, if he decides to bring setup for Mega Venusaur because it just sets up and it's fat and it can do that if it chooses to do so. And I don't remember hearing if we mentioned that this season we're doing teams again. So this season we have 4 people per team, 4 teams, 4 in each team. And Nico's in the team and so alongside me and Elliot. Next person should be coming up soon, but yeah, I had to mention that.
Yep. So next up is actually the Hardcore Pro and the Houston Heatrans. This one's going to be a pain to prep for. Veil plus a lot of fat.
I really like this draft. Even though he has gotten sniped throughout the whole draft like I have, we somehow were able to draft and put together a very solid draft. Some coaches even said we were potentially top 5 in drafts overall, even though and somehow Elliot's draft is arguably one of the most bested in the whole league, and he hasn't gotten sniped yet. I have, Hardcore has, Nico has gotten sniped. But when I look at Hardcore's draft, all I see is nice bulky healing mons, and he has Volt Turn, he has good hazard removal, he has Veil, and he has very good setup on his team. He has SD Scizor, Calmine, Suicune, he has Home Claws, Aerodactyl if he chooses to do that, Rock Powers, Golert. Nidoking is just a very strong wall breaker. Como has setup everywhere. It gets Source Ants, it Totemize, Rock Polish, it gets Dragon Dance, things like that, Belly Drum. It gets a whole bunch of setup like Bulk Up as well as that. This thing just gets set up everywhere and it's hard to predict what he will bring because he has a lot of wall breakers, plus Veil, hazard removal, momentum grabbing mons. He has wall breakers, and he has a very solid defensive core with his Umbreon being a nice, very good defensive mons, healthy, even his defensive ones. So he can even Wish Pass into his Nightshades, keeping Veil active throughout the whole game. And Victini is very scary. This thing is very versatile. It can be mixed, physical, special. It can even run tricky and be creative if it wants to. And it's just very scary. And it's just his Z-Mons is, if I recall, is Victini and Kalmao. So that's also very scary to deal with because you can't predict anything they're going to do in draft format. All you have to do is prep, hope, and pray that he doesn't bring the set that destroys you. And Veil is just overall depend on the draft archetype you have. The only thing I have with this team that is an issue for me personally is that shoot, I think I lost my train of thought. But he can be easily pressured by like momentum grabbing overall, and his speed tears is kind of below. A lot of his team is below base 100. Besides Aerodactyl and Alone Ninetales, everything else is below 100 or base 100. So very offensive drafts can overwhelm this, and that's the only issue. But other than that, he'll be fine.
Yeah, the only mon over base 100 is Taurus, which with sheer force rock climb is doing a lot of damage, especially since it can run Fire Blast as coverage, and just the team honestly just synergizes really well together. Outside the speed tiering, there's not a whole lot wrong with this draft, other than being pressured really easily.
Yeah, a lot of people complain about speed tiering, but to be honest, when I draft, I make sure I cover some speed tiers, but it's not mandatory to do so. especially if it doesn't synergize with your draft. I'm all about synergizing and putting together a well-drafted team, because a well put together draft team doesn't have to worry about speed trades as much. Because if your team is well put together, it wouldn't be easy to break apart and steal momentum from.
Yep. So next up we have Milan and the Amsterdam Alakazams. This one is an interesting one.
He picked up the one, the only, the all god of all OU, Lando T Money. Lando T Money, the Tesla special, the best mon of the game of OU, Lando T. This mon is so versatile. It gets rock polish, it gets calm mind. It can be a very good bulky pivot. It can be a very good scarfer. My man, shout out to Liam, but I've seen him run Banded, Leonard's T, which honestly, it's just no switching. It's just no switching to that. Lando T has base 145 attack that's stupid high, and even though its attack stat is so high, people overlook its special stat, and its special move pool is so good, and it can be very versatile. It gets Grass Knot, Sludge Wave, Psychic, Focus Blast. It gets Hidden Power of your choice, Earth Power. It gets many of these good special coverages that can go well with its physical move pool, and it's his Z-Mon. So that's also another thing that can be very hard to prep for. And he has a very good Cleric and Sylveon. This thing gets Heal Bell, Wish Pass, Baton Pass for dry passing. It can pass Calm Minds if it decides to. But overall, his drop is very well rounded. I've seen him run Calm Mind Sylveon before, and it's done work. He has Arcanine, a very good fire type, arguably the best defensive fire type in draft format. And then overall, disregarding Primagroudon, which is banned, of course. And this mon is just versatile. It can go mix. If you decide to, it can go full physical. It can go physically defensive. Sometimes, especially defensive, depending on the type matchup. And it has very good priority and extreme speed. It gets Morning Sun recovery. And the only thing that's a downfall of this is that it's very weak to rocks as a defensive mon that can check steel types, fire types and such that can't touch it or hit it as hard. And one thing that does fix this problem is Mega Blastoise is a very good spinner, arguably the best Mega spinner in the game. And this thing is not only a good spinner, but it's a very good special wall breaker. It puts in work, it takes hits. I had it last season, if I recall. Like, I picked it up very late in the season, picked up over 9 kills with it in the span of 2 to 3 weeks. This mon is very good in the right hand. And with this draft, he has a very good Grass, Fire, and Water core. Mega Blastoise, Shaman, and Arcanine. He has Wish Pass, he has Aromatherapy, he has Healing Wish. He just has multiple ways to keep his defensive backbone healthy. And his Jirachi is a very good U-turner. Jirachi is also very versatile. And what it does, it can be a bulky rocker, slow pivot, scarfer. It can be Calm Mind. It has Healing Wish as well. And if it comes to that point, he can even punch you to death to win.
Yeah, and with this draft, having a Alolan Persian, being able to just Parting Shot back into something and able to like Wish or Morning Sun or Aromatherapy or something, just giving you a free turn while they're -1 or -2 could be really, really devastating there.
Oh yeah, and he has Z Cobalion, which is very scary. You never want to give Cobalion free setup as a Z user. Like Rock Polish, Swords Dance is always scary to prep for. You never want to take it lightly.
Yep. The Scyther is going to be interesting. It can actually Swords Dance pass into something like a Guts, Facade, Swallow into a Cavalion, so that Cavalion doesn't need to take extra hits to set up. It could pass to a just Rock Polish Lando, giving Lando another move slot to utilize, meaning it can run 3 attacks Rock Polish while also getting a Sword Stance boost.
Oh yes, that baton pass with Scyther is really gonna be nice.
He can, with Sylveon also, he could Calm Mind pass into like a Spec Scrappy Swallow and just go to town with that. He has a lot of options with this team as to how he wants to play it. He also has the option to go Trick Room if he really felt it, with Sylveon and Arcanine alongside Electros and Megastoise.
For sure, yep. This team is very scared to Pardon Shot into setup. Milan's a very hyper-offensive player that likes to have a little bit of fat on the side to help alleviate the shortcomings of his offensive line, which can also pose a threat. It's hard to predict what he will bring because Milan is he brings very innovational sets that can help him win the game or clutch him the game due to surprise factor or just overall effectiveness. And it's just overall very well-rounded draft. Only thing is, I would even say speed turn is his problem because he has base 115. He has a very well-rounded speed tier team. So you have to creep. You can't just slap a nature on your mind. So I'm just bringing this. You have to creep, take the time to prep, look at the speed tiers, know what the speed creep, and hope that everything goes the right way. And hopefully this season, I'll expect to see some very innovational sets from him and some good gameplay. And I really respect Milan as a player and as a person. So that's going to be a very fun time to watch him draft and play these mons to full capacity because these mons are very good. And I've drafted pretty much almost all of these mons. So I expect good results from him.
So next up we have Jury and the coach of the Amsterdam Alakazams. Amsterdam Dragons, sorry. This is another team that's extremely scary. He has a lot of hazard removal alongside a Kyurem Black. He has Wish support with Vaporeon. He has defense with Gligar. He has Mega Ordino, which is a really interesting cleric, seeing as it can really just set up Calm Minds on its own, and just because of its general bulk, it can actually just sit there and eat hits while wishing and Calm Minding, and it only really needs Dazzling Gleam, as there's no immunities to Fairy, there's only resists, so that could be really useful to him. Mew, insanely versatile mon. There's just not a whole lot that you can do to prep for a Mew because it has access to almost every single move.
Oh yeah. And this thing can baton pass, it can be his pivot. It's a very, very versatile mon that can fit any role that he desires it to fill. And I've had it before. It's done work for me. Like, it may not have done much offensively, but just being a very good utility mon, just being a very good backbone mon to have on your team as glue can very well help you win the game. It can support your team and just keep your team going to victory. And I love Mew because there's so much you can run. Like, it gets Volt Switch, it gets U-turn, and it even gets Baton Pass if you're scared of Pursuit. And Baton Pass is overall very good on this mon because it has access to Rock Polish, Calm Mind, Nasty Plat. It hits Swords Dance, Bulk Up. It gets a lot of setup. It can set up on its own to win, or it can set up on its own, break apart the team, and then pass to a mon that can deal with the rest of the team, which is also really scary with this team because, like, imagine passing into Kyurem Black. Usually Kyurem Black has to run Scarf to deal with the speed issues it has, but suppose your team is weakened, he has rock polish me. He baton passes into Cayenne Black and it just cleans up. There's just nothing you can do about it most of the time. It just wins, it cleans up, and it just goes to town. And it's just, this draft is just very well rounded because on top of that, Mega Audino doesn't have to Mega first turn or any turn. It can just be a bulky pivot, swap out, take what it needs to take, do what it has to do, swap out with regen before Mega Evolving. And overall, it can be a very good cleric as well as having Hail Bell, Wish, Protect, as well as Vaporeon having Wish and Protect. And overall, this is a very well bulky team. Like, this is the definition of like bulky offense. The only thing I have an issue with this team is the speed turn a little bit. Like, besides Zerara, like the gap between the speed turn is humongous. So basically, you can, like, if you have a fast enough team member that just punches holes on his team, you can just go maximize your attack stat with the right nature and just go to town and hit harder, making his defensive backbone that much less effective, because usually a very well-rounded speed tier draft, you can't go a power boosting nature to break the walls and fat easier. So usually with that, it causes issues when your draft team is slow and fat, because my offensive mods can easily just set up and not even creep. Just overall just setting up, going the right nature to boost their offensive stat and just breaking.
Yeah, the Whimsicott and Mienshao definitely help with that, but the drop off from Zerora is just insane. And even with the bulk, it just does not help. Drifloon's nice for Tailwinds if he really wanted to. He can substitute with Drifloon. He can run some stuff with Unburden. There's just a lot he can do with this draft, but the speed tiers are definitely a problem, because a lot of people can run power boosting natures and just get as much damage as they can into that. So next up, we have the Golden State Wartortles and their coach, Oglebeaner. This draft is definitely an interesting one, with the Dragon Fairy Steelclaw being Salamence, Metagross alongside Mega Diancie, which is really, really scary offensively. He's got nice Rotom Wash, Chestnut alongside Nidoqueen, Bulk, Absol for Pursuit Trapping, as well as having Gengar and Webs in Leavanny. He has regular Kyurem, which is still scary in itself, even if it's not a Kyurem Black. Pyro, a really underrated normal type in my opinion. It can Noble Roar and stuff like that and just drop stats. The Chestnut is really nice physically. I can't see much else other than the fact that the highest speed tier is base 110.
Yep. And to be honest, when I look at this draft, offensively, it's very offensively based, with a very good spiker, good hazard stackers overall for a very well offensive team. But the only issue is, to be honest, is that with a very offensive team, you can overwhelm his draft if you have the right matchup. And the thing with hyper offense is, you know what's coming with hyper offense. You know what's gonna come. You know what puts in work. You can prep for it. You can have your checks, defensive mons for it, and his removal for this team pretty much is on the Fog Salamence, the Fog Rotom Wash, and Magic Bounce Mega Dance is really good, but at the same time, if Mega Dance is your win con, and your opponent knows this is their win con, they don't have to predict the Mega Dynasty coming in, or they can predict it coming in, trying to prevent your hazards from going up and just attacking it. And this can pretty much cost him the game because Mega Dynasty needs all the HP it needs to function, to come in, to set up, to sweep, or clean up. And to be honest though, like overall, he has very good type synergy. Overall, I just find it not to my liking when it comes to me as a player because I like to have a very well-rounded defensive backbone along with clerics and passing and stuff. And this team doesn't have any kind of wish passion on here. I don't think he even has, well, Mega Dynasty gets Heal Bell, but usually with Mega Dynasty, you're not going to run Heal Bell because you want to attack things, you want to nuke things, you want to sweep, you want to set up Calm Minds, you want to set up Rock Polish, potentially sharpen for your Diamond Storms, things like that. And overall, this team is very offensively well put together with a nice hazard stacker. The only thing is, if you want to hazard stack and there's no spin, that's kind of counterproductive because if your opponent has like spin and they have hazard stack, they can hazard stack you, they can spin, or they can predict the Gengar coming in and just nuke it with a super effective coverage if they prep well enough for it. And overall, this draft is put together well. He dropped it well, and I look forward to seeing what he does with it.
So next up, we have the I think it's the Portland Timbers and their coach Hutch. This one's another interesting draft. Very interesting with the way that it was put together. Mega Medicham alongside Blacephalon and the Bulu is honestly really scary, and him having webs in Rabombi and the extreme speed Belly Drum Lanoon, it just makes this draft a whole lot scarier. Scarf Tyrantrum,
Banded
Tyrantrum, yeah.
Rock Polish, Dragon Hit.
Magic Bounce on Zatu to help control hazards on his side. He has Defog Empoleon, Defog Gliscor, and Defog Rotom Frost, so he's got a lot of options for hazard removal and hazard stack, but personally, with webs, I feel like this team probably shouldn't be relying on Defog and should have a Rapid Spinner. That's the only downside I see to this. Obviously, he could make this work, but in my personal opinion, I would have Rapid Spin alongside this instead of Defog. Mega Medicham is going to be really nice to chip things up for something like Tyrantrum, maybe, to come in and clean up, or even the Lanoon. Bulu's terrain is really nice for keeping Medicham healthy alongside the Lanoon.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Honestly, I don't see too much wrong with this, other than maybe the speed tiering having a huge drop-off. From the Rabombi, it drops down to Lanoon, which is about base 1, I think.
It drops off to Blacephalon, I think.
Blacephalon, sorry, yeah, Blacephalon. I think 107 it was, or something around there. So, a rather big drop. Alongside Rabombi not hitting as strong.
Yeah.
So
his main niche is just to get up webs, U-turn, get some chip off, things like that. It gets U-turn too, if he wants it to be one of his offensive mons to Volt Turn to get in his offensive threats. Because Mega Medicham, his wall breakers like Tapu Bulu, Tyrantrum, they love to come in undamaged with Volt Turn. And with the worms up, a lot of the time the Volt Turn is pressuring you, and then the threats of the wall breakers are coming in, they're clicking buttons, they're breaking your team apart, and it's just hard to deal with if you don't play it right and are prep right. The only thing about this team that isn't really that well put together, in my opinion, is pretty much clerics. Like, if his mods get status, burn, or toxic, or paralyzed, things like that, it's there to stay pretty much the whole game, because I don't see any heal though or aromatherapy. I don't see any clerics on here.
Yeah,
but I think his main role in this team is to come in, get up hazards, smash the opposing team, keep the offensive momentum going, predicting the opponent, get into their head, and just overall just offensively breaking apart their drafts and team and just outplaying them. So I like the team. It's put together well, minus his speed turn issues and no spin. I think, and no clerics. I think overall this draft is put together. It can do a lot of work. Very good type synergy on this team to deal with the weaknesses his offense has. So that's good. Like, he has pursuit for like the bulky sidekicks or ghost types that may pose a problem for this team. And he has a very good rock, immunity, and resist in Glasscore and Napoleon respectively. And Drapion resists poison as well as absorbing toxic spikes, which can be a problem if toxic spikes are up versus this offensive team. But overall, I really like it. It could do work, and Webs is always scary for me to prep for, and he has the fastest sticky web setter in the game, so that should always be a problem for the right team archetype. So I look forward to seeing what he does, and I give him shout outs for the dot coding. He's done a lot for this dot, and I really appreciate his help for the dot coding, and he's assisted a lot in this league as well with Kurt, and I appreciate that because coding isn't easy, and I know that. So just wanted to give that appreciation and shout out.
Yep. So next up, we have the third team captain, actually, Master Whoop and the Chicago Bear Chicks. This one is honestly a scary draft. Thankfully, he can't speed boost Baton Pass with that Scolipede, but regardless of that, it's still an extremely scary draft.
Oh yes, it is. Yes, a very well-rounded draft.
As I forgot to mention at the start of the video, Mega Kang was unbanned without Seismic Toss, so he has non-Seismic Toss Mega Kangaskhan, alongside Scolipede and Zapdos, as well as Zygarde 10%, and Infernape, so he's got a lot of threats, and he's got the bulk to back it up with like Piloswine, Uxie, Primarina with an Assault Vest, Zapdos can be run defensively, Kangaskhan can Wish, Zoroark is really nice for playing mind games as well on Showdown, so that's good to know. You get, if he does bring Zoroark and he doesn't set up with it, you'll not actually know if he brings the right moveset to pretend that he's something else. It's just a really well-rounded draft with Uxie being able to Cleric, Piloswine a really nice bulky rock setter, Magneton to trap the bulky steel types. You didn't need to say here, Silver?
Well, I don't know if anyone else has seen this. Like, he's mentioned in the chat in the server, in the UPA server, he's mentioned a lot of things that people are overlooking in his draft. And when I look at his draft, I see a lot of hidden tech and strats that he can use. Like, for example, like, Decidueye is often just used solely as a bulky hazard removal mon that can pivot with U-turn and such. But a lot of people overlook the aspects of this team, like Scolipede with Z, Swordsdance, Speed Boost. Scolipede, what I don't like about people is that everybody looks at Scolipede and they're like, oh, he's going to speed pass to his offensive mons, but Scolipede is a threat and will always be a threat. And I think Scolipede is arguably top 5 when it comes to Z users because it can pick the right coverage, the right Z move, set up at the right time, nuke the threat that checks it, and just sweeps and steamrolls the whole team. And not only that, he has a very well-rounded draft team with Zapdos being a very good removal, being a very good momentum grabbing mon. Holoswan, a very good rocker, sets up rocks, being fat with Revitalize. It gets very good stabs in draft format. Ice and ground is very hard to switch into. Base 100 attack should not be slept on. In my opinion, it does a hefty chunk to offensive mons that thinks that Holoswan doesn't hit as hard. And I love this team because usually Kangaskhan hates steel types, bulky steel types, and Magneton helps trap that. And it's very well put together with that because a lot of the time when you're drafting putting your team together to prep, a lot of the time you don't want to run Shed Shell. And if you don't run Shed Shell and your steel type is weak and Magneton just comes in, claims it's killed, and then the rest of his team can just put in work because steel types like Skarmory, Celesteela, things like that annoy Scolipede because Scolipede usually doesn't hit them very well even with Swords Dance. Its best move to hit them with is Rock Slide Z, Continental Crash. And even then, that's only doing over half, and the Skarmory can just whirl in it. The Celesteela can protect on the Continental Crash. Celesteela has Flamethrower, things like that. And another thing I see in this draft is the very well-rounded Volt turn in this team. Like Zapdos gets both U-turn, Volt Switch. The Sidrai gets U-turn. Infernape gets U-turn. UC gets U-turn. Magneton gets Volt Switch. This team is very well-rounded and momentum grabbing. Zoroark gets U-turn. Zoroark gets Nasty Plot, Swords Dance, things like that. And if it disguises as the right mon, it can get free setup, and it's a Z-mon as well as Scolipede. So if it's disguised as the right mon, it can set up, nuke something with the Z, and then potentially breaking apart a potential part of the team that walled or dealt with his offensive mon. I also see Baton Pass, Decidueye coming into play, like Nasty Plot passing, Swords Dance passing. It can trap with Spirit Shackle on the right mon. Like, say you're switching to Decidueye is something that defensively switches into Ghost or Grass, and you switch it in, and it Spirit Shackles you, and it doesn't do much to Decidueye. Pretty much, Decidueye can Spirit Shackle. It can roost up on it, set up, Baton Pass into the right mons. Like, Swords Stance passing to like Scolipede or things like even Piloswine, Infernape, things like that. It can do work. And the Decidueye can sweep it even on its own. It gets Sucker Punch, Shadow Sneak. It gets a lot of good utility moves and offensive moves that can put in work. And his team is just overall versatile, hard to prep for. He has sweepers, he has wall breakers, he has clerics, he has a lot of good options and momentum grabbing. And when I just see this draft, I just see Master Look all over it because this is pretty much his style of drafting. Like, he likes to have an unpredictable draft. He likes to bring tech, heat, and unexpected but innovative new sets that will usually cause you to be overwhelmed and out-prepped a lot of the time. So I look forward to seeing him play with this team, and I expect a lot of good results.
So next up, we have the Aussie Kangaskhan's and their coach, excellent name. This is another scary draft on this team. This team of the Goat Squad, as they call themselves. They have two very scary drafts straight up, with Master Whoop into excellent name. Right, Mega Pinsir plus Zygarde 50%, and Espeon to control hazards, alongside Delmise and Heatran. Make for a really well-rounded team. The only thing is fire, with Heatran and Zygarde being the only two real fire switch-ins on this draft. There's other resists, but they don't exactly switch in too well on offensive fire types. There's a slight lack of removal with Rapid Spin Delmise and maybe Default Skuntank, but other than that, there's not really much in the way of hazard removal.
And the Default Togekiss.
That's not going to be a very common sight though.
I mean, I've used Default Togekiss. Like, it's not really most of the time with Togekiss. It has 4 moveset syndrome, so a lot of the time you may not want to run Defog. And if he decides to bring like Spikes or T-Spikes Greninja, having the Defog on his team is pretty much not welcome, because you want to, when you hazard stacking, you want to keep the hazards up for his offense to sweep. But overall, I don't really look at this team and see weak to hazards, because he has very good hazard control. He doesn't have to hazard stack every game. Like, a lot of the time, Rocks is doing his job. After a few turns in the game, Zygarde 50% can sweep, Mega Pinscher can sweep. I can see Nasty Plot Togekiss doing work. I can see things like Carmine, Espeon. I can even see the top pass Togekiss with Nasty Plot into Espeon or Heatran, Scarf Heatran, things like that. And I see a lot of potential in the draft. I like that he has a Toxic Spike Absorber on his team, along with being a remover. And overall, his team is very well rounded with Volt Turn. It has a great electric community. It has switch-ins for almost pretty much every type. It has every hazard in the game. He has very well-rounded sweepers, a very good wall breaker and Mega Pinscher. He has priority, and he has a very good cleric and Togekiss. And Togekiss gets Wish as well, so that's also a thing if he decides to bring Wish Togekiss. And overall, I just really like this draft because it's bulky offense and it just puts in work for him.
This draft is really nice. He can hazard stack if he really wanted to. Again, there's no real need for him to hazard stack every single game, but he does have that option. Kangaskhan can be a nice wisher, especially because it can be bulky with leftovers. It can run an offensive set if it really wanted to. There's a lot that Kang can do. Poliwrath is a really nice water immunity for Heatran, just because the only other switch into that there is Delmise, which most water types carry an ice type coverage. So honestly, a really well-rounded team. Not a whole lot that I can see wrong with this team, other than maybe the lack of rapid spin with potential hazard stack, but other than that, there's nothing. So we're going to move on to Loris Master and the Miami Heater, and this is an interesting team. Mega Lati plus Weavile and Buzzwole alongside Volcanion is just really interesting. Bronzong's really nice. This team also has the option for Trick Room. It has the option to go super hyper offense if it wanted to with Mega Lati, Buzzwole, Weavile, Mimikyu, Electivire, and Volcanion. There's just a lot of options on this team, so he has a lot of options here. He has a great Cleric in Ordino. He has Memento from Mega Lati if he really wanted to. Rapid Spin with Donphan and Defog on both Volcanion and Mega Lati. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of hazard removal, but those three should be enough to get rid of the hazards that potentially threaten this team, which is mostly rocks, as Weavile, Volcanion, and Electivire don't really want to be taking that extra chip damage with their lack of reliable recovery.
Yep.
Donphan's a really nice. He's got two really nice bulky rock setters. He does have Hazard Stack if he wants. With Roserade getting both types of spikes. Buzzwole can be a really nice defensive mon, or it can be a very offensive mon with Scarf or Choice Band or something.
And Mimikyu being a very good spam blocker.
Yep. There's not much that can... there's a few ways that this draft can be broken, but other than that, there's not a real lot that's wrong with this. Maybe the speed tiering, but because it drops from base 110 down into the 90s. So that could be a problem for him in the long run, but I don't see it being a huge problem.
I honestly really like this draft. Like, on paper it may seem meh, but pretty much almost every single one of these mods on the team I've used before. Like Megaladios, Weavile, Roserade, Bronzong. I've used these mods multiple times. I've had Megaladios recently. It's very versatile. Like, it's extremely bulky, very bulky for what it does. It has Dragon Dance because base 130 attack. Its physical move pool isn't really as bad, but it's not really that bad. But a lot of the time when you're going running a Megaladios set, you want to go special with Calm Mind, things like that. Like, I've seen Calm Mind, Roost, Refresh, Store Power. If your opponent for some reason has no dark type, that set can win the game pretty much, because a lot of the time you can EV your Megaladios to be fat, to eat hits, take them, set up, Roost, and Speed Creep. And I love Megaladios for being versatile. You can't predict what set it'll be running. It can go mixed, physically, physical, fully, especially offensive. It gets Calm Mind, like I've mentioned earlier. It gets Dragon Dance, like I've mentioned. It gets a whole lot of good options. Its coverage is really well rounded, especially. It gets Energy Ball, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam. It gets Draco Meteor, Psychic. It gets Earthquake. It gets a whole lot of things like Surf and all that. Just a whole lot of coverage that can just back up the team. And if it chooses to run hidden powers of its choice, like Hidden Power Fire, that can be very good too, as well. And it gets Memento if you want to go that route. But personally, with Megaladios, you don't want to Memento with it, especially on this team, because when I look at this team, another issue it has is the lack of setup. Like, Weavile usually doesn't set up. Megaladios isn't going to set up every week, especially if it has to defog. Buzzwole gets bulk up, but a lot of the time Buzzwole doesn't want to set up. It wants to come in, take a hit, a type bag, Roost, things like that. And Mimikyu is a good setup mon, but a lot of the time Mimikyu isn't breaking most of the time. So unless it gets a Sword Sense up, and even when it gets a Sword Sense up, a bulky Steel type that's not weak to Psych, not weak to Ghost, can sponge a hit even with the Z move, and it just takes it, and it can break its disguise or just knock it out overall. Donphan is very easily pressured. Like, it's a good spinner. It's not bad, but it's not the best because it's so easily pressured. Like, grass, ice, and water is everywhere, and a lot of the hazard setters will pressure Donphan out, and it's easy to wear down with no recovery. And if his remover is only Donphan that game, they can just kill it, pressure it, hazard stack, get up hazard, and just keep them up for the whole game. And his team really hates the chip hazard overall. And the mons that does get removal oftentimes don't want to fit it on their moveset because they want to be doing other things other than removing the hazard. And if he's hazard stacking, he wants spin. So
yeah, but other than that, there's not much wrong there.
Yeah, it's well rounded.
So the last one for this team is Brody and the Derbyshire Darkrise. this draft is interesting. The speed tiering is really off, with a drop from Mega Lop down to Garchomp, which then drops off again to Necrozma. So there's big drops in speed tiering, which is a bit of a problem. A lot of people can go plus attack natures, because there's no real point in going trying to creep a Mega Lop. It's just so far gone with, I think it's base 135 speed or something like that. It's a ridiculous speed. So there's not a whole lot of reason to be running plus speed natures unless you're down in the lower speed tier ending spectrum. A lot of this draft is easily pressured with no cleric. There's not very much removal. Defog Rotom, Defog Moltres, Rampant Spin Claydol, about it. And none of them are reliable really. Claydol is can't really recover its HP back. Rotom is easily pressured in base form. Moltres is 4 times weak to rocks. With most of his removal being the fog, means that webs are kind of irrelevant for him. Ferrothorn, Porygon 2, Alolan Muxdo is a really nice defensive core.
Oh yeah, it really is. We can't count out his defensive backbone, because even though like the speed tier is really off, one thing that I do give him credit for is that a lot of the time Mega is pressuring you, and it's getting chip on a lot of his team. Like Ferrothorn, Megalop, and Garchomp is a really good core. I've seen it multiple times. Like Garchomp is a good rocker, good scrapper, good Z user, and Megalop just gets chip. And with hazards up, Megalop is pretty much 2-hit KO. Pretty much every single defensive or hyper offensive base mon in a format. Megalop speed chain is pretty much impossible to hit or surpass, because the only mons I remember on the top of my head that speed ties with it is like Mega Main, and a lot of the time people don't drive Mega Main, and Mega Main switching in on a Megalop, especially with hazards up, and it risks a speed tie, and nobody wants to risk a speed tie. And Megalop almost never has to risk a speed tie because it gets quick attack, it gets fake out, it gets feint, it gets multiple options, and things that outspeed Megalop is usually like Mega Beedrill, a Selgor, like Zeraora, things like that. And pretty much frail mons outspeed it that are never switching in, and Megalop has the priority to pretty much kill them or chip them enough for when it comes in again, it can just revenge them with priority. And Megalop is a very, very amazing Mega, pretty much arguably the best Mega in draft format from what I've heard and seen. It's just easy to chip the team down with the defensive backbone, with hazards, with chip, residual damage. Megalop just comes in, picks up a kill, swaps out, or just cleans up, and there's nothing you can do about it a lot of the time. And the only thing I do have a problem with him dropping Megalop is the lack of wall breakers on this team, because like he has set up in Necrozma and Garchomp and Slurpuff, but Slurpuff
there's not a lot of natural wall breakers.
Yeah, and they pretty much require setup to break. And a well-rounded draft and well-prepped team players will oftentimes prep for the setup, allowing it to not happen. And pretty much Slurpuff requires so much support to the point that sometimes it's not worth even considering on the team versus the particular draft. And a lot of the time with Garchomp is that Swords Dance does break apart the walls, but Garchomp isn't like its speed tier isn't as good as it used to be. Like base 102 is really good, but there's a lot of teams that can run Scarf, there's Ice Shard, there's bulky water types that won't let it set up because they get ice beam. There's hidden power ices everywhere, and it's just overall easy to chip down Garchomp. It's hard to set up with Garchomp and Wall Break, and it's a Z-year of his, if I recall, and it can break with Necrozma. But a lot of the time, looking at this team, Necrozma most of the time will probably have to be defensive because when I look at this team, is really, really weak to fighting. Like, he has nothing to switch into fighting because Rotom isn't switching in on any coverage options that fighting types may have. And overall, I just think this team has redundant typing. And the clerics, I don't see any clerics besides probably aromatherapy, Slurpa, but most of the time with Slurpa, you're not gonna be a cleric of your team. You're gonna set up webs or be a belly drum user, and can do work, but there's redundant tappings. The speed turn is very much off. The gaps is there, and he can do work with his team because his offense is there. He can do work with it, but overall he's gonna have to work harder than a lot of the drafts we've covered. But overall, I expect to see some good work with this draft because this draft isn't bad. It just has flaws that are more noticeable. But overall, this draft is pretty much above average in my opinion. It can do work. It can pretty much snag some wins if he plays it right and just do well.
Yep, so next up is me and the Adelaide Absols, the
Take
captain
it
of
away.
the final team. And this is the main point of this draft was I was going into the draft. I wanted Kartana and Mega Charizard X. I went Kartana round 1 because I franchised Mamoswine, so that meant that I had the option to get something else instead of Mamoswine earlier on, which I went with Kartana just because it's such a great wall breaker. I can run the Timid Beast boosting set for speed. I can bring a attack boosting set. I can bring Scarf, Choice Bandit if I really wanted to. This is a lot that Kartana can actually do for what it is. Then the second round I needed my dragon, I needed a fire type to complement the grass type on Kartana. So I went with Mega Charizard X. These two together break a lot of walls without any setup. Backed up with a Selgor plus Tornadus for speed, momentum. Salazzle is a redundant fire type. I grabbed Salazzle though just because Salazzle honestly does a lot of work with Z moves. Nasty Plot with base 111 special attack is dealing a lot of damage. I picked up Cryphagragus as some bulk for the team. It's one of the best normal type answers in the game. It's great for getting rid of abilities like Scrappy or Mega Lop or something like that. So in those two together, plus I did grab Vigoroth. It's really nice with bulk up Eviolite, but I don't know if it's going to be doing much else than that. It's just not as good as it could be, as I would want it to be. I grabbed Rampados in tier 5 near the end of the draft because Rampados is honestly one of the best wall breakers I've seen with sheer force. It gets rock polish. It's slow, but it's got, I think it's base 165 attack or something. So it's ridiculously hard to switch in physically for this. And with sheer force, meaning I can run like Fire Blast, I can run Ice Beam, I can run a lot of coverage on the special side if they try to bring in a full physical wall for this. Selgor gives me nice momentum with like Final Gambit alongside Hazard Stack. It can also be used offensively because it has a decent special attack stat. And it's doing a lot of damage, and there's not much that outspeeds a Selgor. It's one of the fastest Molins in the game. I grabbed Cloyster because I needed a water type. I needed an ice type because, well, I wanted a second ice type because I didn't want to have to rely on Mamoswine for ice typing the whole time. But I more so grabbed Cloyster as a potential spinner because it does get rapid spin. Not often that I would bring that, but the option is there with base 180 defense. It can be really defensive. It can be defensive spikes, meaning a Selgor can go offensive. I grabbed Primeape in the last round because Primeape is just a monster, and with Defiant, it means that people don't want to defog as much. They're forced to spin, and I have one of the best spin blockers. So being able to scare away hazard removal with Defiant plus spin block means that I can hazard stack pretty well. Rampardos also gets it also gets Mold Breaker, so meaning that I can ignore Magic Bounce, I can ignore Levitate and do a lot of damage with that. Tornadus just hits really hard. A lot of my draft is really offensive. I will be dropping for a bit more bulk after this because Vigoroth just doesn't fit the bulk I need. And the speed tiering is really nice with a slow decline down to my Rampardos Cofagrigus area.
Yep, he does. Yeah.
Yep. And honestly, this draft, it's one of my better drafts. The wall breaking side of it, just there's a lot that I can do with this. Defensively, I don't have too much though, unfortunately. You got anything to say about this draft, Silver?
It's a terrible draft. Nothing to say. I mean, anyways, and all jokes aside, Kartana as a Z user, very scary, very good. It gets Swords Dance. It can be a very good Scarf Cleaner. I've seen Bandit Kartana. Knockoff is very good utility. Knockoff off of a base 181 attack, like, it's really good as utility, but also damage output is ridiculous. Like Z moves with Kartana and Beast Boost is really scary. He can run the Timid set if he chooses to do so, and it can just pretty much sweep and weaken teams. Get off his Swords Dance, click the right Z move, get the speed boost, and proceed to clean up. And this draft has Mamoswine is a really good rocker. Like, to be honest, Ice and Ground is so hard to switch into. Mamoswine is a very good offensive mon, and a lot of the time it gets rocks up on a lot of rockers because a lot of the rockers Mamoswine hits very hard. I just outright knocks them out. And if Kurt chooses to do so, he can run Oblivious Mamoswine if he wants to get up his rocks. So he doesn't have to worry about taunt. He can just get his rocks up. They can waste their taunt, and he can potentially like get at rocks for free, swap out, or just quick stabs in front of what his opponent has in front of him. And on top of that, his speed turn isn't as bad either. Like, the speed turn is covered very well. He has a very good U-turner. And Tornadus Therian, arguably the best U-turn in the game, alongside Mega Beedrill. He has U-turn Primeape. He has U-turn a Selgor if he chooses to run that. And he can even run Trick Room on this team because he can run offensive Trick Roomer sets with Cofagrigus, with Nasty Plot, Trick Room, Shadow Ball, Hidden Powers of Choice. It can be defensive with T-Spikes, Will-O-Wisp. It can have Toxic. It can run utility sets with Knockoff. It has Magic Coat, so it can bounce back hazards. It can reflect the taunts that may come its way. It can bounce back the Toxic and hazards that people are more likely to bring to wear down Cofagrigus. So I really like this team because it may not have switch-ins for things, but he does have pivots. He has wall breakers that really don't need to set up. They just attack, wear down the team, and then they just weaken each other's checks to the point of cleaning and winning the game for each other. So it's hard to prep for his team defensively. And offensively, you have to worry about covering his whole draft. The only thing about this draft that's not good is he right now, as of now, before drops, he likes clerics. But other than that, when I see this team, he pretty much offensively pressures people. He gets up his hazards. He has some defensive mod. He can bring AV Torn. Like, I've seen defensive close to Ram before. And Mamoswan can be bulky as well. A bulky rocker and still hit hard. And potentially set up for his team. His team can set up as well. Overall, his team is very hard to prep for, to switch into. It's a lot of time when you prep for a team, you have a defensive backbone, but when you look at this team, there's just nothing you can do to prep to switch into this team. And overall, this team is just well offensively put together. I love the U-turn on the team, the regen, and the setup on this team. And even though you have setup, it doesn't require the setup. To set up, you can just wall break and not set up. And the trick room potential is there with Rampardos as well. And overall, this team is very well put together with Zeke, Salazzo, and Cartana that just nuke something for free because nothing wants to switch into them. So oftentimes, they get a free kill.
Yep. Next up, we have Liam and the London Luxrays.
The worst draft of the league. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Coco and nothing else. That's what he said. That's all his draft is, type of Coco.
This boy is
in reality, it's a really
way
scary
better.
draft with Unburden, Hitmonlee beside Coco. Dalmanitan doing a lot of work. Azelf being a fast rocker with explosion to suicide lead if he wanted to. But its base offense is just doing so much in the way of damage output. Mega Aggron, disgustingly fat, extremely hard to break. Tangrowth alongside Lickilicky and Tentacruel and Rhydon for bulk with the Mega Aggron. Just there's not much you can do to really break this draft. Offensively, there's not a whole lot of switch-ins to Dom, Azelf, Coco, and Hitmonlee, as well as Dragonite.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, this team, like, the way Liam drafts, he usually drafts his offensive mons, and he has, like, the perfect support for them in the back. So, like, if you decide to be like, oh, I have this mon to deal with his offense, but now you have to worry about, okay, now how am I going to break his back without being too weak to his offense? And I love the way his draft is right now because he has very good hazard removal. He has a very good cleric and Licky. It can't be taunted. It's so versatile. It can Swords Dance, Curse, Belly Drum, things like that. But most of the time, with Licky, you're going to be running Wish Protect, 2 moves. And it's very fat for what it does. Like, base 110 HP, really good. And it does so well on bulky offensive teams, which this team is. It gets heal bell as well, so that's good. Like, having a cleric that can't be taunted is 100% welcome because, like, it's just really hard to deal with having a fat mon that you can't break and having an offense that's just kicking your team. And then on top of that, your team is getting tipped with Tapu Koko, Azo, Dalmanitan, Tentacle, and Hitmonlee. Like, Rhydon, like, he has so much setup on his team. Like, Rock Polish, he has Rock Polish Rhydon, he has Curse Aggron, like, he has Nasty Plot Azo. He has Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko is his Z-Mon, and it can run like Z Mirror move, get +2, clean up, break, wall break. It can be a very good pivot as well. And it gets Volt Switch and U-Turn, it gets Roots, it gets Calm Mind, it gets Wake Up, it gets a whole lot of good moves that can help offensive-based teams to gain momentum, to scare things out. And I really love his hazards on his team, and along with having spin, like he has T-Spikes, he has a very good regen core and Tangrowth, he has a cleric for Tangrowth, he can Wish Pass into it. He can overall just keep his team healthy to outlast the team, chip the team, bring in Hitmonlee with Unburden and Electric Sea, and just go to town, pretty much. And Dragonite even can just set up, sweep, and nuke something with his Z move. Like, there's just nothing you can do. Like, once a team is chipped down, his offense just comes in, claims a kill, or just potentially just clean up.
Yeah. So next up, we have Zac and the Nimrod Ninetales. This is a Sand offense draft with T-Tar Mega Garchomp. Alongside with Webs, which is really nice. Meaning that Mega Garchomp can do more. And he doesn't have to rely on Defog with Rapid Spring Cryogonal.
Yep, he can go spin.
And he's got a lot of... He's got Volt Switch with Jolteon to try and pivot around. Alongside Balloon, putting things to sleep, and Priority Mach Punches with Technician Swords Dance, which really put pressure on the teams. Lucario Swords Dancing, he's got Chandelure, which is doing a lot, like Scarfing Specs, can run Calm Mind. Alakazam is just doing a lot with Magikarp Life Orb, so it doesn't need to be locked in, but it can still do a lot of damage.
Yep, and Sandstone damage isn't an effect, so it can pretty much stay healthy and keep its potential focus dash intact throughout the whole game.
The only problem I honestly have is the speed tiering here. It drops off from Alakazam all the way down to Lucario.
There's also Jolteon, but yeah, they speed
No,
tiering.
Jolteon's
also
faster than Zam.
Yeah, but you said Zam is faster. But anyways, minus those two being his fastest, everything drops off from below base 100. Pretty much there's no base 100s on this team besides pre-Mega and Mega Chomp. But other than that, you want to Mega your Chomp for the wall breaking power. And if you have Webs, you shouldn't hold off on your Mega because Sand Force, Mega Chomp is doing loads of damage to your team. It's wall breaking. It gets Swords Ant. With Webs up, it can just go to town. And its special attack is really good, base 110, I believe. So it can go mix as well. So it can be versatile in what it does. And it can just break apart teams for his other members like Alakazam, Tyranitar can be bulky, it can go Crunch, Choice Band, things like that. It can be his bulky rocker. He has Volt Switch. The only thing on this team is that his only momentum grabber mon is Jolteon, and Volt Switch is blockable. So if he chooses to go Baton Pass, that can help, but having only one momentum gaining mon throughout the game can be an issue, especially one that may not come to every game. So other than that, I may find issues with him with momentum grabbing drives that can just overall pressure him and put in work.
Yeah, he's got the only problem really is the speed tiers and the lack of momentum, which would really help the Garchomp as you could pivot into it. It's got decent bulk to be able to take one of anything that's not 4 times effective, meaning that it can do a lot of damage to a team.
Yep. I also overlook U-turn Masquerain, but a lot of the times with Masquerain, you're either gonna set up Webs or potentially Quiver Dance, so a lot of the time you won't be U-turning. It's usually a suicide lead, so other than that, I can also see him running Trick Room. He has some good Trick Room setters like Aromatisse can set up Trick Room, and Chandelure can set up Trick Room, and Mega Chomp, Tyranitar, Chandelure, Lucario, Breloom, things like that. And in Trick Room, they can honestly do really well because these mons are oftentimes pressured due to their lower speed turn. But with Trick Room, you're pretty much having to sack to these offensive mons because these mons offensive are pretty much overwhelming, and they're bulky enough to take hits, set up in Trick Room, put out damage, and rinse and repeat. And outside Trick Room, they can still do work. So it's not dependent on Trick Room. He can do work with the Trick Room. He has a Cleric. He has Wish Pass. He has pretty much a team, and his Cleric is also non-tauntable. I can't taunt Aromatisse because of its ability. You can't taunt it. So it pretty much gets out Wish, Aromatherapy, things like that for free without having to worry about taunt. And that's really good to have as a defensive cleric because a lot of defensive clerics are pressured and they get blocked through taunt, which you oftentimes don't want to deal with. And this team really loves the cleric benefits of Aromatisse on this team. Aromatisse also got Nasty Plot as an Ultra Center Moon. So expect to see some potential offensive Trick Room Aromatisse sets if he decides to bring that. And overall, this draft is really put together. He has Spore to help his team set up. He has Priority. He has Trick Room, bulky team members. He has a momentum grabbing team. He has Webs. Overall, his team is well put together. It may not look as threatening to those on paper, but in practice, I can see him doing work with this, and there's hidden tech that he can potentially bring that may be overlooked, and I look forward to seeing how he preps because Zach is a very innovative player. He loves to try new things, bring heat and tech, and potentially throw you off and winning him the game with that alone.
And to finish off the recap, the analysis is Tyler, and well, Tyler likes pie. He franchised Latias, which gave him a really nice dragon to work with. Getting the round 1 Tapu Fini was great because he has immunities to, he has resists to Latias's weaknesses, and he has resists to Fini's weaknesses. Alongside Raikou, which is giving really nice momentum with Talonflame, which can momentum into Zangoose, which with Toxic Boost Quick Attacks, it's doing a lot of damage. Scrafty's got 9th Intimidate, Mega Banette with the Prankster Will-O-Wisps and Destiny Bonds and stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I can honestly see Tyler doing with this team. At first glance it looks really unsynergized, but I can see Tyler making this team work.
Oh yeah, I can too.
Tyler can pull some stuff out of the, pull stuff from up his sleeve and really surprise people.
Yeah, I really like this draft because, like, yes, on paper it doesn't look very well put together, but what most people think about is like, yes, the draft as a whole may not synergize, but you're not bringing your whole draft to every game. You're bringing a team of 6 out of your draft, and you can end up bringing a team of 6 that really, really goes well together, and that can really do well and put in work versus a particular draft matchup, which is often overlooked. Like, people tend to look at the draft overall, but you need to look at, okay, this may not mesh well as a whole, but as a team of 6, it can potentially go very well together. And a lot of things are overlooked on his team. Like, he has setup, he has clerics, he has wish, he has a whole lot of potential ways of winning on this team. And I love that he has Nihilego as his it could be a very good hazard stacker with T-Spice and Stuff Rocks. It can be a very good cleaner with Scarred. It can be a wall breaker with Specs. It can even be, I've seen Specs speed boosting Nihilego, clean up games before, and it does a lot of work. Its move pool is really good. It gets Thunderbolt, Grass Knot, like it gets rock moves, it gets Psychic, it gets a whole lot of good moves that may surprise you and that may pick up the kill and continue to snowball effect. And with Webs Up, it's going to be really hard to revenge this thing if you have no priority in Aqua Jet or Bullet Punch. He has a very solid team with Hazard Stackers, Hazard Setters. He has Removers. He has Wish. He has a lot of momentum grabbing mons, and he U-turns with Talonflame. He has Volt Switch with Raikou, and I just see a whole lot of potential in this draft. Knowing that Tyler, he usually preps Heat and Tech, so I expect to see some very innovative sets from him. And he usually plays well. Like his Josh, I usually slept on, but when you see him battle, it's like, man, I overlooked this, or I got out prepped, because when you usually look at a draft, you look at the weaknesses and flaws. You don't usually dig deep into what it can do until you feel the effects of it, and usually by the time you feel it, it's too late. So I expect to see some really good stuff from Tyler. He the homie. Like, I've seen his prep. His stuff is really put together well, and he preps very innovative, and I expect to see some really good results from him. He's a very solid battler. Had some very good games with him, and I expect to see him do work.
Well, I think that's going to wrap us up here. So, I'd like to thank you all for watching this hour-and-a-half video. Hope to see you all for week 1. Probably doing weekly recaps, maybe, if we get the time. But, anyway, we will see you all later.
Peace out.